Uh, Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Real Football Talk. Today, as you can see, Hassan's not with us. I'll be help me and Cam will be trying our best to keep up
Fill,
the high standards, maintain,
fill the void.
yeah, and bring the passion, hopefully, to this weekend action, which it's always exciting after international week anyway, or 2 weeks because everyone's craving for
For
the
some
action-packed
football. Yeah.
time. But then you couldn't get a more intriguing game week with so many key matches and good matchups and subplots and storylines. So I'm sure um, today's show will have lots of good talking points, and there's no bigger one to start with the clash of the top two, the perennial, competitors, the two teams that in the last decade have been the most successful of all the teams in the Premiership, and yeah, and they occupy first and second for a reason. And what did you make of the match?
If we're talking about the last decade, I think City take the pinnacle, don't they?
Yeah,
But yeah.
Liverpool would come clearly second.
Yeah. No, it
Definitely
was
the
good.
top
It was a
two.
good game. It wasn't an exciting game. I think it was kind of similar to the Arsenal City game, where there were moments where it kind of got tense, but overall the game was very, I don't know, it was open at times, but very kind of even like as a Liverpool fan, sometimes it was a bit boring to watch. There were just moments in the game where it just didn't feel like there was much happening. City looked the most threatening. I think drawing conclusions from that match, I think you can see that we're still a level off them in terms of quality. City just have something about them, even without certain players. But even just certain players just didn't perform yesterday. And I don't know. City looked like they were favourites going into the game. So for Liverpool getting a draw, because we don't often win at the Etihad anyway, was probably a good result.
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely, City were the more fluid team. They seem to be able to um, play around the Liverpool press really well. I thought Liverpool really struggled with, um, and there's a slight change. They played Rodri as the CDM, and they played uh, Akanji slightly more advanced, which I think threw Liverpool off because it just always meant Akanji was free coming in, and yeah, so that was definitely something that I think a switch that worked really well in the first half for City and allowed them to have kind of more comfortable and have more of the possession in the first half. But I did think that fluidity we're used to seeing with Liverpool wasn't quite there
Yeah,
when we were attacking. Normally, there's a couple of 3-on-3s, and balls were over here. It's not, and maybe that's the effect of them all coming from international week. They didn't get
yeah.
to
I think that's what it is.
that rhythm wasn't there. You can tell there's a sharpness to Liverpool's attack that was definitely missing in the game, and that, but what you can see is the evolution of the City team in terms of normally you expect them once they get the lead, they kind of board the game by just playing possession and not really attacking. But with this team and the younger players and the new players that's come in, and maybe the absences, they don't have or they don't try to sit on their 1-0 lead and keep
Yeah,
possession, and they actually continue to go for it, which is surprising. I was really surprised to see the gaps that they were willing to leave, and in their efforts to get a second goal, they made the game more interesting because they allowed the pockets for Liverpool to do the counter attacks.
I,
So
I thought
that did surprise me.
I thought Liverpool had the better chances in the first half. Funnily enough, even though we got the equaliser in the second half, I don't think the performance was that different. I think if anything, City had the better chances in the second half comparative to the first half. besides the Haaland chance, there wasn't anything really clear cut. Nunes could have got a header. There was a few chances Liverpool had early on. Um, but overall, I think City probably deserved to win, but a draw is something a Liverpool fan would take, considering how we played overall. And I think you're right that coming back from that international break, even Alisson, he just did not look on it yesterday. He looked quite poor.
I don't think not sure. Maybe you can correct me. Alisson didn't join up with Brazil's squad, did he? For this round, I think so. But he again, Alisson does that thing of he always gives you a chance. We know, I mean, on the ball he's good, but he's not the best. I mean, he
Yeah,
has made over the years many mistakes. Some he's got, many he gets away with. The odd few he hasn't. So he's not. I don't think he's the greatest on the ball, but definitely one-on-one shot stopping. I mean, coming out of his line, he done a couple of crucial saves.
his
Uh,
overall goalkeeping is what makes him, I would say, the best in the
I
league.
mean, I
But
mean,
the playing with the ball at his feet, I don't think he's quite as good as Edison or
I mean,
Onana.
Edison, that pass he played, that the one pass he played through like five, six players.
Yeah.
I have the need of pass. I can't remember who he played to at the end. Someone in the second half. It's just like there's
Yeah,
rarely.
straight through. Took our whole
Yeah,
midfielder. Yeah.
yeah, and there's midfielders who are afraid to play that pass, and you got a goalkeeper taking. It's just unbelievable, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, you could tell. Yeah, City looked a level above. I think it might be more because of they got slightly more settled
Yeah.
lineup in terms of that's the team that's been playing the big games recently. Liverpool's team had quite a lot of question marks over it. I thought, on the whole, considering the fullbacks, Matip hasn't been that convincing at all this season. I thought Liverpool done very well. First half, I thought McAllister struggled again to get involved. Wasn't really dictating the game the way
I don't
again.
know. I had a different view. I think McAllister was actually a lot better this game than other game because there was times where he was on the ball and he was so small and he was just wriggling around, keeping hold of that ball, doing the ball retention was really good. It's more so I think his passing and when to pass it and getting familiar with that number 6 role, generally dictating the play. I don't think he's been as great at it. I think we looked a much better side when Gravenberch was on the pitch and Endo was on the pitch. We're playing a more familiar position, so I think that's what it is. We're missing maybe two key players in positions where will actually help McAllister out a lot and just help the team out a lot.
And before the game started, I did make a note of the lineups, and clearly you could say City's starting 11 was stronger than Liverpool. Liverpool had to play quite a few of their backups in
Mm.
positions, but then um, when you look at the difference in the bench, and before the game, I was thinking if there isn't too clear, I can see the second half being stronger for Liverpool just based on the bench. And ultimately, once Klopp got those subs on, it did make the difference that strength in
Yes,
depth
yeah.
actually shone through, and that's what I think felt like Liverpool had slightly more of control and threat in the second half than they did in the first. First half, a lot of the chances they had was because of how open City were playing.
Yeah.
It wasn't through, but second half, Liverpool were actually going toe for toe, opening up, and I just felt that bench definitely made a huge difference to the result. So
But we can't
yeah,
forget City almost, on two occasions from corners and then, the Haaland chance before we scored. City were on the cusp of almost taking the game away from us completely. So, it was
yeah.
it was one of those games that I think we got a bit lucky as well, even as a Liverpool fan, I think the only reason the foul was given was because of where the arm was on Alisson. But I think it was a bit light, that corner going over through his hands.
Yeah, I mean,
Because it's a Premier
definitely,
League, it's a corner. People are being physical all over the box. He felt a bit too soft for it to go through Alisson's hands,
Well,
at the time. Again, I can see why the foul was given, but when I saw it, I didn't actually think. I think the reason I saw it as if it was given against us, I would have complained about it. So I think it was like really like
yeah, it was definitely soft when you compare it to Joe Linton, Gabriel for the
yeah
contentious goal. I mean, this was a lot lighter, and if you're going to give that, then surely you should give the Joe Linton thingy one, which I still agree that Gabriel caused all the problems there. So I still think that one, the right decision actually did happen. But to think this one is the opposite decision, a foul, definitely super soft. You can see it as well in the replay. He gets underneath the ball.
this one.
He
I think as he's gone
times
to
it wrong.
collect it, I don't know how much control he had catching it
Yeah,
anyway.
he was
I think
overstretched.
I think the only reason the foul was given is because of where he has hit him as he's jumped, where it was across the arm. Whereas if it was more towards the body after he's caught the ball, then I don't know if they would have given the foul. I don't know. But I do think it was like but the second one was just clear. He caught the ball and then they're just nudging him in
Yeah,
past the line.
that was two hands on the ball, but that obviously the one where goal disallowed,
Yeah,
that possibly was a wrong decision.
yeah.
But this is the Prem now. This is how it's going to be. It seems like VAR will have big say on where the title goes these days because there's a lot of key decisions that that they're getting wrong. So it's becoming decisive now, and that for me was the total opposite reason why VAR was brought in. So it's strange. It's a disappointment that VAR has become so controversial, and it's only this season that it's gone that much worse. And there's frustrations before, but I never felt like the frustrations were as critical in influencing the game as much as they are now.
I
Like,
think it's more to do with refereeing. Referees almost are relying on VAR more than they were in previous season, and VAR is utilizing that. Whereas before it was literally clear and obvious mistakes. Now it almost seems as VAR is becoming the referee
yeah,
because when
it
referees
is.
aren't
Yeah,
making the
definitely.
decision, VAR is coming in and saying, "Oh, actually, that was a red card," or that should be a penalty. But if the ref, this is what I'm talking about. If it's clear and obvious, then fine,
And
turn it
yeah,
over.
definitely. I think a team that comes up today over this weekend is this thing. I don't know. It's a contact sport. I just don't agree with the idea of contact being deemed a foul when there's no chance of getting to a ball. I just don't agree with that. I just don't think we should start giving decisions like penalties away when, say, like a cross gets over here and there's contact in the box that could be deemed a foul. You start giving
Yeah,
penalties. I mean, it's not affecting the play. There's zero chance of somebody of that person getting to the ball. Now it's gonna. Then you have to do it in the whole game, which in the midfield, so much stuff is going on, so many foul
yeah. There's
tugging.
so many times the ball will float over players and they're tussling for the ball.
Yeah.
Fouls aren't given because well, there was no chance of playing the ball.
And now it seems like that threshold is that they're now going to look into that and start giving. But I think it's getting ridiculous. And definitely,
On the flip side, you could say though, prior to that, is equivalent to when people have been in the box and they've overhit it, but then the defender's taken their legs. It would have gone out for a goal kick, but they still given the pens because of the recklessness of the tackle. So you could say for that reason, it's not about them getting the ball or affecting the play. It's more about the aggression on the player. That's why they've given the foul. So you have to look at
I,
it at what type of foul is it. If it was just a tussle, then I completely agree. It feels a bit ridiculous to give a penalty because there's a tussle in the box for a ball that wasn't going to be won by either player.
yeah, I mean, definitely it's a change that for me is worse for the game and becoming very decisive in a lot of key matches, unfortunately. Um, any thoughts on how this sets up for the rest of the season? Do you still think it's a two-horse race, or after Arsenal, do you think yeah, Arsenal are definitely still in with this?
I don't think it's ever been a two-horse race. I think we always, if not we all, I think I kind of always knew that Liverpool would come back stronger this year. Um, but I think as the season wears on, we're probably going to see either one Liverpool side that either really kind of turns it around and goes on strides of wins and just shows that dominance again, or we're going to see a Liverpool side that kind of fades off here and there, but will be around the top four. Um, I think it's almost likely that it is going to be between Arsenal, City, and Liverpool because I think even City, as strong as they are showing vulnerability this year. And I think it is going to be between Arsenal, Liverpool, and City. But again, it's a long season. Anything can happen. You know, City, we know they can just switch it up like that. Soon as they're, especially post January, soon as they go on their runs, it's very, very hard to stop them. So, at the time, for the time being, the way the season looks, I think it will be between those three teams. Arsenal looks strong, even when they're not playing well, they're still winning. So I can't see why Arsenal would drop off to that extent.
Yeah, and that nicely ties us in with the Brentford Arsenal game. What did you think? Late winner from Havertz, and
Yeah,
you can see how happy that made Arteta. Came off
Havertz
the
needed
bench.
it.
Yeah, came
Yeah,
off the bench to score a crucial winner.
yeah.
What was a tough game? What was your take?
Again, tight fair. Brentford's a good side, so you can't take anything away from them. But Arsenal have not. There's been times this season Arsenal have shown that they're a really good side, but then there's times where they almost show that they're not as good as last year. There's something about them that just seems a bit different, doesn't it? You could say maybe it's the amount of games, or maybe the type of players they brought in, or if they're just trying to change the system and it's not quite working for them. But they don't look as assured as last year. Can't really piece together what it is. It looks more tactical than anything. But again, they're still winning most games. They are showing that they're still a good side. I think Ramsdale, coming back in, there was already pressure on him, wasn't there? I think he made a few mistakes, but so has Raya here and there. So I don't know. We'll see how that saga unfolds even further down the line. But I think he's still got a lot to prove for him to show that he gets back into the team full time. But overall, yeah, I don't know. Brentford's a good side. I can't take anything away from Brentford. I think that game could have easily ended in a draw, or even like there was a 2 or 3 chances that Brentford could have scored. So I think Brentford were unfortunate to lose, and Arsenal were lucky to win that game.
I think I don't know. Arsenal definitely were the better team, and I was worried for Brentford because they put so much energy in, and that's the thing. Their style, that man for man style, it's eventually going to catch up with you, and you could see. Thomas Frank probably took too long to change that midfield because the midfield that was the first time where suddenly they were struggling to go man for man and press zonal press and press the play on the ball. And that was the difference. That was the first time where Arsenal got concerted pressure after, 2 or 3 build ups and the ball coming straight back to Arsenal. And you just felt like, okay, there's now a real gap in the and change in the tempo. And yeah, it did feel like Arsenal were going to kind of overrun them in the end. Um,
Yeah, but I don't
Certainly,
think if the whole game, I think when you look at the whole game, I think that's kind of how Brentford play. They kind of wait, they suck up the pressure, they play on the counter, they do put pressure on the players when they see, so especially that midfield, when that midfield goes in for a battle, it's almost very similar to Newcastle. They put that pressure on. If they win the ball there, then they're quick on the counter. Um, but that's what I'm saying. I think it was very
in the end, that
unfortunate.
cost
It
them.
didn't work out for Brentford this time, but you see a lot of games, especially Wemo and Wissa, they are very aggressive going forward, and there could have been chances they've scored. Zinchenko made a very, very good block on the line at one point as well. So,
I mean,
you know,
you're never going to have an easy game at Brentford,
yeah.
and definitely in terms of Arsenal style. I think they play slightly more conservative. They're slightly more organized. They are definitely beating the press a lot better than they did last year. They look better up to the box, and that's where, other than Martinelli, you really struggle to see how they're going to create chances. So they have been very secure, and what I can tell is the midfield doesn't overlap as often as they were last year. The fullbacks aren't overlapping as often as they were last year. They've kind of trying to rely on basic crosses in the box
Yeah.
as the only way of creating or individual brilliance. And I think um, that's the biggest difference. Seems like that midfield and the fullbacks are waiting for the counter press to be ready for a counter press, and so that makes them more organized and solid. And they've been kind of like that all season, but against Brentford, like you said, a team that likes to counter attack, likes to attack the space and the gaps that you leave. Maybe it showed up a bit more because of Brentford's specific style, but definitely, yeah, important winner, important goal for Havertz. And I think the keeper, would be disappointed that no one's really pointed out, but it wasn't a great header. It was a header down, went through the legs of the keeper.
It
Normally,
was
you'd
it was just
expect the
more of the
keeper to
way the
save that.
ball came across goal, isn't it? And
Yeah,
again, you're almost as taught at any level when you header it down. And it was,
but near post, you'd expect your keeper to save that. It's
yeah,
literally
I guess
inside
so.
the
But
post.
it was a good
So,
header in the sense that it was directed well, and as soon as it bounced between his legs, it was always going to go in.
yeah,
So the header was really well taken. You
yeah,
know, but I
definitely.
agree. Goalkeepers, it very much depends on the goalkeeper and their positioning, because sometimes you see as they move across the goal, they'll get low straight away and they'll save it, or it'll go out for a corner. And
Um,
it was just
I
very,
think
it was very, it was just very unfortunate. I think it went through his leg, but
point I'm
it was a
making,
very good
once you're
header.
there, he didn't get beaten by the ball or the pace or the flight. You're there,
Yeah.
but the error is your stance because it's going through your legs,
Mm,
or
yeah.
as he
But I
tried
still
to
think it was a
land,
very
it
good
went through
header.
his legs. So it should personally it should have been an elementary save for a keeper of Premier League standard, but takes nothing away from Arsenal. They were the team pushing for the winner, going for it. They stepped up the tempo at that moment, and they got the deserved winner. Felt they were slightly the better team. As frustrating as Brentford were. What was more interesting was the reaction at the end of the game. I mean, all the players, the way they were hugging Ramsdale, he certainly has the support of the squad,
Yeah.
and you felt that. And I was thinking, oh, this is gonna potentially become a problem if Arteta goes back to Raya, because obviously
This,
Raya was um,
this is what I felt with the
he
fans as
came,
well,
wasn't
though. I
allowed to
think when
play.
Ramsdale got dropped, it was even the fans weren't too sure. It felt
Because
very
he'd actually
strange.
started the season well. He
Yeah, yeah,
actually started the season really confident. That was what was surprising, was he wasn't showing that jittery form that he showed towards the end last season. So to drop him when he was in form, looking confident, was a surprise.
yeah. No, that's what I mean. I think the players were probably as surprised as the fans were. So when you see that level of support, um, Arteta has to kind of look at that as a squad and think. But then again, you have to be ruthless. If you've got a better keeper at your disposal, it doesn't matter if everyone loves him. You have to go with your better keeper. But at the moment, I don't know.
Is Raya
I
better
don't
keeper?
know.
I, I accept he's probably definitely better on the ball. Definitely better on the ball.
Yeah,
Maybe that might make a difference to your possession stats, but is that really the
but that's
biggest
not a
problem?
goalkeeper's
The
job. At the end of the
difference
day, I'd rather take a goalkeeper who's better at the shot stopping if it's gonna save me in a game or save me some points over a goalkeeper who's gonna do a fancy little pass here and there and keep the possession up. Because even with Raya in goal, ball at his feet, his start to his Arsenal career hasn't been great. He's had a few little mistakes here and there. So
yeah, I think talking about outside of the mistakes, you can tell he's actually quite good on the ball. I mean, he's made mistakes, but outside that, he's done some unbelievable passes as well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just there is a difference there. But I think, yeah, it's good. That's going to be an interesting one because every single player was around Ramsdale, and I was thinking, okay, this is going to be definitely one of the most interesting subplots.
This is what I said. I think it's going to be
So
interesting saga between the goalkeepers this season at Arsenal. And obviously, we don't know how long he'll last. He might chop and change throughout the season. But I think by January, if he wants to compete, he needs to choose who he wants in goal. You know,
is this the turning point for Havertz?
you would hope so. I think from a human side, you kind of feel bad for him. His Chelsea career, the hate he got, even coming to Arsenal, didn't start off well. I think you could see it was affecting him. So you even when he scored the penalty, when he was given the penalty and his half celebration, he was still a bit, unsure. And then when he's celebrating in the crowd, the crowd cheered for him. Like the fans were really happy for him. So I would hope for his sake that this is a turning point for him and we start seeing him perform a lot better. Maybe get back into starting 11 like Arteta wanted him to.
Well, they're clearly making all the effort to make him feel
Yeah.
important, loved, and valued. So, think still the positioning might be a problem. I mean, he is a very good, what I consider world class number 10. Soon as you play him off the wing, up front, midfield,
Yeah.
not the same. And you just have to watch his performances for Germany in the same period when he was struggling at Chelsea. Is when they play him in the 10, he was Germany's best player, even though they were struggling under Hansi Flick. I know now he's become a left back under Nagelsmann, which is another story altogether. But it just shows what a team player he is. He's playing in so many different positions, um, but it is to his cost because he is a very good number 10. That's his best position. Whenever I've seen him play in the
I think
10 position, he's affected games.
I think the problem is with our most teams now, it's very hard to play with a traditional number 10. Even with Odegaard, you see the work he does off the ball. Bruno Fernandes, the work they do off the ball, they become midfielders almost. Almost every team that has a number 10, De Bruyne included, they're not a traditional number 10 anymore. Not like the Ozils were. Um, it's very much you need to work like a midfielder with the creative output of a number 10. So I think with Havertz, for him to be able to play as a traditional number 10, because I don't think he has that defensive ability and that midfield ability to play as a traditional midfielder and play a number 10, he would need two very good holding midfielders that can do the running for him, that can make up for his lack of if he was going to be implemented into that team. But then you can't take Odegaard out of the team to put Havertz in. So it's just one of those. I think Arsenal in a tricky position where they could have two number 10 that they rotate. But I think Havertz is good enough and Odegaard's good enough to both play. But where do you play them? They're very different type of players. So yeah, it's interesting. Interesting to see. We'll see because I think Bar City, who yes they make changes, but I think City and Pep knows his best 11. He makes changes based on games. Whereas I think with Liverpool and Arsenal right now, they still haven't got that. Who do I play? Who's my best 11? Even as a fan, we don't know who is our best 11. I guess we do when everyone's fit, but at the moment, it's very hard to tell. Even in defense for Liverpool, and even in midfield, who do we bring in to make sure that everyone is getting utilized properly? And I guess it's a good problem to have, but also you want to know who your starting 11 is. You want to have a strong 11 because that's your 11 that's going to carry you forward at the end of the day. And then you have your premium players, your players that can come in and make a difference off the bench if you need them.
I think with Klopp, I think he knows his best 11. I just don't think everyone would agree with it. For
Very
example,
hard. Yeah.
I think Matip is his number one
I don't
choice.
think so. I think it's Kanate, but Kanate's had his little injury problems. So I think Kanate's been getting rests a lot more than he was last year. I think Kanate and Van Dijk are probably our best starting centre backs.
And this is exactly my point, that I don't think the fans will accept what Klopp's first choice is. hence why everyone else sees Konate as the number one, but I don't think Klopp does. A lot of the big games, he always turns back to Matip unless he's off form. Then he goes to Konate because obviously Konate has to take over at some point. So you got to
Yeah.
build his confidence up. But I think if it comes down to a straight choice, Klopp would pick Matip over, which most of the fans wouldn't agree with.
Yeah, but it's just I drove back to when that Champions League final, Madrid and Liverpool, and Matip was fit, so was Konate, and no one knew who was going to start because Matip was in good form, and then we played Konate and Van Dijk. You know, it's one of those where I think when Konate's
Again,
fit,
that's more to do with, I think, Vinicius Junior than anything else. And
I don't
again,
know.
you know,
It's a Champions League final, isn't it? It's
difference
one
the
of those.
difference between the two uh, isn't that great. I mean, they're both good enough to start, but there is a difference in pace that Kanate has.
Yeah,
And you know,
definitely.
so I
But
don't know. We'll never know, but definitely, I'll be surprised if Klopp doesn't actually know his best 11. I
no, he
think
probably has. He
with
probably does have
Arteta,
it
I
in his
think he
head.
does know his best 11, but maybe those players like Havertz haven't performed to warrant being in the first 11 yet. And that's maybe why so much effort is being made to build him up because the plan is that it's both him and Odegaard in the team and Rice as the CDM. Um, we won't know until everyone hits form and the crunch games come along, but um, it wouldn't make sense getting Havertz when you already have Odegaard in the team if you don't plan to play him as another midfielder.
Yeah,
So yep, definitely City are the most settled anyway out of all, and they have the most fluidity and flexibility between their players. Their players can comfortably play 3 or 4 different positions, which other players can't. I mean, you see the drop off. You see the drop off and the difference. I mean, even with Trent when he plays in midfield, he does well, but he doesn't look anywhere near as comfortable as when
I think that's
Son
probably
goes
also
in
got to
or any
do
other players
with
goes in.
it's more of an inverted role, isn't it? Where we haven't got a traditional right back when Trent goes into midfield. I think he's constantly battling between because it's a system change, isn't it? When do I drop back into right back? When do I drop into midfield? Because we saw it against City yesterday. There was times where he's going into midfield, but City have the ball, and it's going lofted over him, going over to Doku, and it's that ability to know, all right, let me drop in now, and then I'll move back into centre mid because he did everything right to go get the goal, and his positioning and his movement was absolutely fine, and even his distribution throughout the game and when to move into midfield, but it was when to move back into right back. I think sometimes he struggles with, because his overall distribution, his ability on the ball helps him so much as a midfielder. It's that where he's playing as an inverted role. I think if he was just playing as a traditional midfielder with a right back, I think we would see a much different side to him in midfield.
And those are the slight differences maybe between the teams right now. Is City's players are very comfortable wherever you put them.
Yeah.
You tell they know what they should be doing in position of position. Let's move on, Cam, into the game. I think we've covered the main two teams. Today's game, Spurs against Villa. What did you make of the game? Quite
What
an
is it?
exciting game.
Three losses now, is it for Spurs?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
The smile says it all, Cam.
so-
I would
no,
expect this from, like when it was the last two, the first loss, Hassan had a big grin on his face.
it's
I would expect that from Hassan.
long may it continue. No joking. Spurs, I don't know. I think they're not gonna keep losing, are they? But I think it's time they finally got that reality check, isn't it? For their fans finally got a reality check. So, you know, I'm quite chuffed. But as
Not really hating the fans, yeah, the happiness of the fans.
it's I don't know. It's I think Spurs obviously they had a great start, a bright start. Losing Madison shouldn't be a reason why they're losing games. But obviously they're not playing bad, but they're starting to lose games now. So I think teams are starting to find them out a bit more. Um, but like I said, that doesn't mean they're gonna be poor and they're gonna start losing games all the time now. I just think something switched. They're just on bad form right now. They'll kick back up. But Villa, they're a good side. You can't, you got Villa is a team that you expect Spurs to just go in and win. Maybe based off their form in the first 10 games, maybe, but Villa's a really good side. Even when they lose, they're really ready to bounce back. And yeah, it's not an easy game. Villa's very aggressive. They're very strong. Emery had them well drilled. So Spurs knew it was never going to be easy, but you'd expect Spurs to win at home against Villa.
I think Spurs today, especially, uh, really the whole back line is fullbacks ultimately. You know, against a team that's just below you, at 1 point below you, in form, striker on form. It's tough, if you're having to play a left back and a right back at centre back,
Yeah,
it's going to be a tough ask. But the performance of Spurs really surprised me. I mean, they completely outplayed Villa. The amount of chances they had, I mean, they had about five, six, with the timings were off and they were slightly offside. Um, but really, the attacking play has developed since the international break, and yeah, I was so impressed with that first half. I was shocked um, how it stayed 1-0 of that half until the last kick, where Villa equalised. Definitely against the run of play. I definitely the football and the attacking that Spurs are doing is quite exciting. I mean, I think they showed a lot more variations to their attacking play today that I thought, okay, if they keep building like this, a lot of teams are going to struggle to contain them because there's so many clever things they're doing with Poro's positioning and Udogi's positioning, and I think they're the only team who's using both fullbacks as midfielders, which was surprising because
yeah.
Poro comes in like the CDM and Udogi goes like an attacking midfielder. And that caused loads of problems for Villa in the first half because they didn't know how to handle that left hand side where Udogi was. So I felt that was by far really interesting for me to see. The football they play was really good, but they are very naive team at the moment, and I think it's deliberate, as in Ang Postecoglou is only focusing on their attacking play and not teaching them game plan, counter attacking, doing different tempos to the game because that's where they're at, and he wants to fully get their identity as an attacking team. And for the whole game, they always left gaps. When you have so many injuries and your whole back line gone, and you've gone to the point of Emerson Royale and Davies, who are both backs, by trade.
Yeah,
As you said, a back pick, you'd think you'd go with a slightly less attacking outlook. No, they did. They actually played more attacking than they did in previous games. Um, the two fullbacks, Poro and Udogi, were in attacking positions the whole way through. Um,
I
it's
think
just
when you look at
crazy.
Spurs, I think they're a very good team going forward, and they've got the ability to hurt any team. This isn't just about Villa, any team. Hence why I said you can't see Spurs losing for a long time. Although they've lost this game, they've lost three in the trot. It's actually not a representation of how they're playing. It's like you said, they could have easily won that game and by margins. Um, but again, it's the Prem. The quality of the Prem can seep through or through moments, small little moments. For Villa to go get the win wasn't because they were the better team. It was just they took their chances, and
And I think that's the identity of Villa as well. They play to win, they play to attack, they play to score goals. They're quite similar to Spurs, but they had a bit more pragmatism in terms of dropping players behind the ball, which Spurs didn't have. Spurs just play all out attack. It's a bit like heavy metal football. It's a bit like when Klopp first came to Liverpool. It's just always gun ho
Yeah, let's
attack,
go for the most goal.
get
Yeah.
defending, yeah, and it's like, hold on, you got your whole back line missing. You ain't got you know, your first choice central midfield. No Basuma, no Sa, no Romero, no thingy Van, and you're thinking, and you're still playing all that attack. It's crazy. They lost the game because of naivety. I think it's by design. Maybe Postecoglou doesn't want to
I do think
teach them
they do
different
look at that side though.
identities yet.
I do think they do look at that defensive side. But I think you're right. There is naivety, but there's probably a lot of training that needs to happen on the training ground about when that transition between attack and defense. And I think you're right. There is a lot of focus on the attack, and there's not that maturity or maybe that tactical nuance yet of how to transition back into that defensive unit, even during a counter. You know,
I think
even when
when
the
you're
ball's
teaching,
against you, how to move into a position of defense where you can then win possession back and then play your style of football. So yeah, it is very similar to that Klopp first coming into Liverpool, where we were getting goals galore, but then we were conceding as well. Or there was games where we should have won and we lost because of that style of football. So it's something that they'll probably grow in during the season, or it might take a season,
but
regroup, and then they'll be better next season.
for me, when I see a manager do this, it makes me take them more seriously
Yeah.
because good managers don't rip up the plan just because you have loads of injuries or just to get wins. Because the ultimate, you may have a more successful season, but if you're looking to build for long-term success, then you want to complete the plan that you're on instead of chopping and changing and reacting, and that stuff you do when your team has all the know-how. So I see it in a positive light that and Postecoglou just shows what he knows what he's doing. He's choosing not to become more pragmatic because he thinks that's going to probably in the long term slow down the development of his team in where he's trying to take them. And that worries me because it just shows they have got a manager who knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
And
it's like what I
he's
said.
taking
I think
short term
Spurs
hits.
are a much better team now. Without Kane, I think because they lost that talisman. I know Madison becomes that a little bit, but I think they're playing more as a team now. There is more of a unit plan of how to play, and you know the team looks better for it. And it's like you said, I think it is more threatening because it looks as if there's longevity, there's long term planning to this Spurs team, and that's only gonna if they're performing like this season, you know they can only get better going
Yeah,
forward.
definitely. Yeah. So positive performance from them. I thought Villa were quite fortunate to get the win, and but their mentality is always to play to win, always to score, and ultimately the game changed on that naivety and the tactical difference because I think Unai Emery bringing on Tielemans and Bailey was the difference. Ultimately, they changed the shape from a 4-4-2 to 4-4-1-1, and the goal comes from Tielemans through ball to Watkins, the second goal, and ultimately Udogi was not able to attack and cause the problems he was to Aston Villa in the second half because of the threat of Bailey's pace in behind the gap that he was leaving. So definitely, I think it's a game for tactics, and Unai Emery basically won the game through tactics, halftime changes that won them the game rather than maybe the simplistic, sticking to our ideology and our plan, and potentially be willing to sacrifice the result approach from Postecoglou.
Yeah, I don't know if he wanted to sacrifice the result. I do think his game plan was maybe to outscore or goal. go for it. We can be missing half our team. Play the game, play tactics. And I think again, unfortunate because Villa are just very good at hitting you in the break. And with players like Watkins, Douglas Luiz, DRB, there's just so many players in that team that can hurt you. So yeah, I think it's just one of those where maybe they were fortunate, but Villa are very much like this. They are very good at hitting you on the break and hitting you with that aggression. And Spurs were unfortunate not to get those goals when they needed it because then Villa capitalized on it. And that's the Premier League at the end of the day. City again, they could have done it to Liverpool. They didn't. A few good saves here, a few bits of luck. Liverpool equalised. They lose the 3 points. They get a draw. Here, Spurs didn't win it. They lose the 3 points. They could go away with nothing. And Villa gets all three. And it's fine margins. It's literally those fine margins. You don't take the game away, the other team can hurt you.
And definitely a game that follows a similar theme, but the scoreline wouldn't suggest it, is Everton versus Man United, where um, unbelievable. I think on Match of the Day, Gary Lineker, Shearer, and Ian Wright were all saying Olise's goal against Luton was potentially goal of the season. Well, I think I write that off now.
Yeah.
It's opener. I mean, if we see a better goal than that during the rest of the season, I would be shocked.
You don't get many amazing goals anymore. How often do you get like these bangers?
The thing is, this wasn't just any old bang. I mean, it wasn't like it was a whipped ball. It was a
no.
drifted ball. It was behind him, the footwork to generate that power and to beat a keeper of the caliber of Pickford. And this is like
Dinosaurs.
his first or second touch in the game. It's like 2 minutes in the game. I mean, unbelievable goal, and it definitely is consistent with the theme of Everton. I mean, the amount of chances they created,
but they have been every
and
game.
they're easy chances though. Some of them, it's like, how can you? They're not even testing the keeper half the time.
Yeah, but
Some of those headers that Calvert-Lewin had, it's literally between the penalty spot and the box. Like, it's 6 yards out. How can you not get it on target?
almost every game now Everton play, they look a good side. They're playing well.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of their performance at most cases. It's just they can't put the goal in the back of the net. And
Yeah, and definitely Everton, I think, changed this. That after 20 minutes where it was really comfortable for United, obviously getting the goal, Mainu was just dictating the game, looked so good on the ball. You're just thinking, wow, he looks like the most comfortable midfielder in keeping possession that we have. And he was playing forward balls. He was controlling the game. And as soon as Everton decided to start going direct, basically Lindelof gets found out, and suddenly they can't control the long balls. They're losing every second ball because again there is no Man United midfield. Ten Hag is still
story
playing
of your
with
life.
this. Yeah, he's still playing with this ridiculous idea of now McTominay plays like a 10 and pushing forward. It's like, what is the problem with having two midfielders, man? Why
No,
do you
no,
keep in one
you need
midfielder
defense and
cover the
attack.
whole of the
You don't need
midfield?
midfielders. You just need defense and attack, and then let
Yeah,
everything else do its
man.
work.
And it was like that. I mean, how many times mine was like third centre back? It's literally five at the back, five up top, no midfield. It's crazy, United's formation. But yeah, as soon as Everton went direct, it caused a lot of problems for United. And it was a very competitive game. How Everton didn't do better with the chances they had. The
I mean,
finishing
they've
poor.
got to fight to stay up now. With everything that's happening, if they're not finishing these chances, they're not winning these games, especially at home. The problem isn't away. At home, they've not been that great. Performance was yes, but they're not scoring. They're creating the chances. You can go almost to every single game and say, how did you miss that? almost every game has a chance, but like, how did you miss that, or how did you not get that on target? There's just too much of these, and if they want to stay up, they need to change that drastically and quickly because there doesn't look like there's hope at the moment for
I
Everton.
mean, and I think that's a bit gloomy. Cameron, the performance was good. I think they'll beat most teams. Um, Definitely, it felt like United have been unlucky in a lot of games, especially with decisions, VAR decisions. You know, a lot of contentious decisions um, have always gone on the negative side against United this season,
The fan,
which is probably a change from every other season. But um, so you can tell there's always been this feeling from Ten Hag in the post-match conferences of there's an element of bad luck he feels happening or things like that. Today they cashed in. All the luck was on the United side. I mean, Everton missed so many chances, and then the couple of times when United had a break, they were very critical with it. And even with the penalty, I mean, it, when you look back on it in the slow mo, yeah, it's a clear cut penalty. But
there's contention of
normally,
penalties every week. At the end of the day,
yeah,
penalties, fouls now they're just very subjective. If the VAR team look at it a certain way, certain angle, they're gonna give it. So
yeah,
it,
I don't think they would have looked at it if the ref didn't give Marshall. I think he tried to give him a yellow card. Was it for a dive?
mm,
Um, I think that's what made everyone look at it and then realize, oh, the refs completely got it wrong. Marshall has been, you
but you know
know,
what I mean. I think VAR is refereeing games
found.
now, isn't it? It's more. It's just okay. We've just seen an incident happen. It was that the correct decision, but have they looked at it as a wait? Is that based on the referee's view? Is that an incorrect decision? Because we have to look at it. How did the referee see this? But
Yeah, but I think
again,
in this one the referee clearly got it wrong because he thought it was a dive when it wasn't. But if he didn't give him a yellow card, if he didn't think it was a foul and just thought that, would they have overturned it? Probably
I
not.
think so. I think so because now any incident in the box, VAR will look at. So if the game was to carry on, I think VAR would have been looked at it probably in his ear and saying, "Okay, we need to look at this one again. Probably is a penalty." And then I think regardless of the yellow card, I think they would have looked at it just because it was an incident in the box. So yeah, you can't fault VAR or the referees in that decision because again, the perspective, if he didn't give it a yellow, then like you said, it wouldn't be as controversial as it was. But I do think VAR would have looked at it anyway.
I think the timing of the penalty came at a time when Everton were just starting to build up steam again, like they did at the most of that second half of the first half. They were starting to build momentum, and then boom, 2-0 down, and United were able to control the match a lot better after that. But definitely a game of missed chances. I mean, just uh, certainly the scoreline doesn't reflect what a competitive match it was. I think Everton one, I'd be shocked if the 10-point deduction stays, and two, I still think they're good enough to get out. I mean, the football they're playing,
No, but
uh,
I'm not disputing their football they're playing.
I
I'm
think
not.
they
I'm not
do
disputing the football they're
okay.
playing. I do think they're playing well, and I do think Sean Dyche has them really well drilled. It's they're not being clinical enough. That's all it is. There's
Yeah,
been so many games this season where, like I said, you can almost look at every game and say, "How did you miss that?" or "How did you not get that on target?" Because the quality, even Calvert-Lewin, at one point in his career, anytime he was in the air, anytime he was in the box, he was almost ruthless. I'm not saying he was
I
one of
think
the
that
best
was the
strikers.
Ancelotti effect, though. I think that was only you know because Ancelotti was making him do specific drills and working on the finishing aspect of his game. But
Possibly, but I mean, maybe it's a confidence thing, but he's still good enough. I don't think he was one of the best strikers in the league, but he was good enough for an Everton side. Everton shouldn't be as a team in a relegation battle every season. They should be around the mid tables. You
I
know,
think they have to be fair. I mean, they were, they were in mid-table until the 10-point deduction. So, 10 points is huge. I mean,
No, of course, no, of
we
course.
got to remember
What I'm trying to
there's
say
only
is,
what is it game week 11? Only 11 games
what I'm saying
being
is, this
played.
is two seasons in a row where Everton have ended up in a relegation battle. I know Calvert-Lewin has his injury problem, so he's not always been present, but he's a big figure in
But my,
that
my
team.
point is, I don't think this Everton team this season would be anywhere in a relegation battle. It's the 10-point deduction that's put them there. I think they're one of the teams that will comfortably sit in that mid-table zone. I don't think they put the 10 points back, they will be comfortable all season. I don't think
Possibly.
they're one of those teams who could get dragged into it. Like you think maybe Nottingham Forest, maybe even Fulham, maybe even Crystal Palace. I don't think Everton will be below those teams. But with the 10-point deduction, that's a lot of
This
points.
is
That's a
this
lot
is
of
probably
points.
why I disagree. Just because, again, it's nothing to do with their performances. They just don't get the results enough of the time to justify those performances. And bar the 10-point deduction, they weren't too far off the relegation zone. So
They were picking up points, especially away from home.
they've got now with the deductions, they've got a long way back. That's all I think, because
Mhm.
there's teams we're looking at that now, and will probably give them confidence in that relegation zone. It will give them confidence that, all right, Everton have been deducted 10 points. That gives us a bit of an advantage. I mean, it will give the whole Premier League a bit of a boost, knowing that there's this sanction that's taken place. But I'm just mainly those relegation teams will feel that much a bit luckier that that's happened.
100%. It was starting to feel like just four teams would be in a battle, and now it's kind of brought a fifth team into it. And now with the results of Bournemouth, Luton, it's maybe starting to drag Fulham, Aston Villa into it too. So um, makes the league more exciting. Let's see how the appeal goes. I still find it very difficult to believe that 10-point deduction will stick. I think it's definitely a bit too harsh.
If
Um,
it doesn't stick, I still think Everton, being Everton, will still make their way out of this bottom
yeah,
three.
I mean,
They will still make their way out, but
they always sack a manager and get a short months that keeps them up on the last day or second to last day.
and then they just
Um,
celebrate, and then same thing again next year. Let's go again,
when
lads.
you look at their squad, I mean, they do have a lot of good players. They do have
That's
a
what I'm saying.
strong
They've got the
squad.
quality. That's
So
what
I
I'm
think
saying.
I
They've got
think
the quality.
I think they will end up doing okay. I don't know. I think that they'll be fine. Looking at the performance, I think they'll do okay. But certainly, finishing it'll come down to finishing definitely for them. Um, let's look at to the Newcastle game. I mean, a big result for Newcastle. 4-1. What did you make?
It's kind of showing how this season panning out for Chelsea, isn't it? Um, they're just they're very inconsistent at the moment. You know, not just again they weren't horrible. They didn't even have a bad game. There was nothing you would say was particularly wrong about that Chelsea
Well,
performance.
I mean, they had a terrible second half. First half,
Yeah,
they were the better team.
you would say there was
They
more
had they
as a
lacked.
team though. As a team, there wasn't much wrong. I think there was a lot of individual mistakes that cost them that game more than the actual overall team performance. There was a lot.
I think that second half, they just gave up. The players gave up. I mean, they got out battled, out hustled. It's kid against boys second half. First half, I accept they looked a better team. Their problem is they can't finish chances, or they can't. The final ball is always a problem, or the final run from Jackson. They played well in the first half, but that second half, the
It's
moment Newcastle went into that mode of physical bullying, all out. They hid. So many players just disappeared.
what I was alluding to is
Embarrassing.
Chelsea have had this type of performance all season where they perform really well, but the teams that they're facing what ends up happening is almost as if Chelsea drop a gear and they go up a gear, and Newcastle they almost play like they're in fifth gear all game at times. There's never a shift. So when you have a Chelsea performance which can start off really well and then they drop off a level,
Mm.
that's when it becomes boys against men because that Newcastle team don't let off. They don't let out. So they were forcing the mistakes. They were putting that pressure on. Newcastle, again, they're not a team which change the way that they play too much. Yes, there's small tactical tweaks, but they were always going to pile on the pressure. And Newcastle isn't a team that you take lightly anymore. They're a good team. They're a good side. They got into the top four last year. They will be battling for that top four again this year. Um, and that's the difference between Newcastle and Chelsea right now. Chelsea are still a very transitional team. They've got a lot of young players, and they've got this team which again they haven't found their consistency throughout a game. They go through these turbulences, and then it's like the game
I mean,
gets taken away from them.
I think obviously Pochettino was very quite clear cut in his post match about saying it was the worst performance under him this his reign. I just think it's the way they capitulated. It's hard to justify spending £1 billion on a squad
And they
and
can't
seeing
perform.
that level of capitulation. I mean, Thiago, so you got a lot of quality players there. Enzo Fernandez again. You know, there's a lot of players that just aren't there for the fight, aren't there when the going gets tough.
What happens
And
when you give too much
surprising,
money to players who haven't proven anything at the end of the day? You've got a lot of players and wages with long contracts, and you have to bring them in for the right reasons. I think the top managers, some of them walk away from deals if they can see that these players are just here for the money. You have to come fight for the badge. You need to come play for the team. And there's a lot of players who almost they've dropped their head as soon as they go a goal or two down.
yeah,
And I think you saw there was a lot of jogging going on. There was a lot of not covering your mates back when they've made a mistake in that Chelsea side. Whereas the other teams, even in Newcastle, someone makes a mistake, everyone's running back. Everyone's doing their best to try and erase that mistake. You don't see that with that Chelsea side. And Chelsea, like I said, I've rated their overall, stance this season, the way that they perform most parts of games or sometimes few moments of their games, because you can see there's a good side there. But they just haven't got it to do it throughout a game. Forget a whole season. In a game, they just go through these curves. So how do you expect to win a game or leave a game proud of a performance when you just invite so much pressure? You invite teams to pile the pressure on you. This isn't just a Newcastle problem. They do it with almost every team, every game. There's only very few games where they comfortably from start to end show that dominance or show that control. And it's just been typical Chelsea's performance this season.
yeah, and definitely the hunger of the Newcastle players, especially at home. I mean, it's definitely now become one of the most hardest fixtures. What did you make of Miley's performance? 17-year-old, going to give it to Howe, starting him in a big game. I was quite surprised. He gets the assist for the first goal. Really nice disguised pass into Isak.
It was instinctive as well. It's not like he looked up, took his time to find the pass. He saw the pass, he played it straight away. And a second later, he's offside, but he played it at the right time, and his overall performance was quite good. You could see that it was probably quite mature considering his age. You know,
Yeah, you could tell that intelligence is there, the comfortability to receive the ball, movement and to find gaps, pockets to receive the pass. But I think that plays a big part into what Eddie Howe is building there because it just makes the fans so much more invested, engaged, proud of the team to have to see young, players from the academy break through like that. And yeah, got to give credit to Eddie Howe for he really is building a big Toon army there that's going to be there up for the battle. Certainly, no one's going to have an easy game in.
I still don't think Eddie has a long future at Newcastle though. With the trajectory Newcastle want to get to, I don't think Eddie has a long future at Newcastle.
I mean, as long as he keeps proving the critics wrong, I mean, the league, everyone is trying their best. to make sure Newcastle aren't successful with rule changes and basically double standards. But they they still prove everyone wrong. They still keep going, and I
I
don't
mean,
know.
they've not
It's
gone
still
about their
surprising.
business like City have over the last 10 years. But what I mean to say is, I think Newcastle and their owners, I think, will have a similar mindset and trajectory of getting to a point that Man City are at the moment. And for them to get to that level will take them maybe a few years. I think this is more like the building blocks and building that stability for the club. I do think the long-term future will become more top players, more top managers coming into the club, and then we'll probably over the next 5 years see a Newcastle side that have transformed from this top four side to maybe competing for the league and consistently being in the Champions League, you know. But I mean,
Well,
anything can change.
yeah.
Anything can change. But I do think that's where Newcastle are right now. They are building and settling this team here, and then building for the future. And I do think Eddie Howe is a big part of it right now, but I don't see him the big part of it for the future.
Definitely would be interesting to see whether Dan Ashworth can make that jump. I mean, he's been incredible at building clubs and building infrastructure and finding talented players and improving squads. But it is a different mindset winning trophies, and definitely with City, they had people who knew had to build teams and players and sign players to win trophies. So let's see if that last step, which is always the hardest step, they can make that progression. But
Yeah,
impressive. As we know, we can't have a show without talking about Luton.
finally.
Got their first home
I was
win.
waiting. I was waiting. When are
Yeah,
we going to talk about Luton?
yeah, finally got their first home win. Um, against
Good
uh,
side.
you know this was the strongest Crystal Palace team they've had all season. All their first choice players were available. Elise and Eze back. Obviously, Eze coming off did make a difference in the game, but yeah, definitely, I think really crucial victory when you look at the results of Bournemouth. And at the time, Burnley were winning for large parts of their match. It seemed like Luton needed to get a win, or else they'd start falling away from the rest. So
It's what I said to Hassan. I think week by week, I'm eating my words about Luton because at one point I made the claim that they would even get to 20 points. I'm sorry, not 20, past 20 points. So
yeah, what was the bet? I'm trying to remember. I'm sure you had a nice friendly bet on a
yeah,
fourth.
well, my statement at the start of the season is surely they don't make it past 20 points. But like I said, happily I will eat my words because Luton, they're proving me wrong at the end of the day. If anything, they're out of the three teams that have been promoted, they're like they're a proper serious underdog story. That's what I like about them. They're they're proving everyone and everything about them as a club and the league wrong. They're a small club. They're a transitional club, like you guys said. They're building for the future, even if they go down. But they might just stay up. They're just
I mean, the thing about Luton, I think, is when the players and teams and the fans come to the stadium, because you have lower league clubs. You have Bournemouth. They don't have massive stadiums. They've done some renovation work recently, moved to a new stadium. But you have clubs like Brentford. You have small clubs
yeah,
that have small fan bases. But they renovated their stadium. They had a benefactor who's invested some money, and that's how they've managed to get up. Or you've got clubs like yo-yo clubs like Norwich and all of them
yeah,
who their stadium was built at least in a purpose built site. And then you have Luton Town who were poor for even EFL standards, and
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
come to stadium and you think you can't see the stadium, it's crammed in the middle. there ain't many
You have to go through houses and windows
facilities
to
and
get
the
into the
level.
stadium. You know,
Yeah, and I
it's
think it really does bring home how how and advertise the Premier League, which is the dream is there for every club.
yeah,
It is about good administration. It is about good structure. It is about managing the club and the finances. But the dream is very real. And when you see clubs like Luton, because you look at all the other teams, Bournemouth, even Brentford, even Brighton, they all have invested heavily with rich owners.
yeah.
Luton,
So
I would
it's
say,
like Luton at the moment.
is the
Should they
only
stay at
real
this
fairy tale
trajectory, there
story.
might be someone who comes in. But at this moment in time, proper underdog story.
No,
There's
but when
everything.
you
There's
look at it,
nothing
it
that you
is
can
the
say.
real, but it is the real fairy tale story, as in there is no rich benefactor.
Yeah,
Obviously, there's someone who covers the losses that the club make, but it's not someone rich who is investing a whole load of money when they're buying. I think in the championship they still had the third or fourth smallest budget in the championship. This is a real fairy tale story. This is a real, like they say in the FA Cup, a real, upset. This is the real one. All these other smaller clubs that have had remarkable rises, it's actually they had a rich benefactor.
yeah. They've had the
With
investment, they've
Luton, that
had the
hasn't been.
infrastructure being put into those clubs. That's what I'm saying. Luton, it's a pleasure to see. It's nice to see because if they stay up, that's a miracle in itself. Because it's that's a club that you think, all right, they've come up, they'll go down, they might come back up, or if they stay down, then they had their chance in the Premier League. But they're showing that they can do it, and with a few more additions and I think over time, I think there's a real good possibility that Luton might become a club that can maybe maintain its stay in the Premier League, or even if they do drop off, they're a good enough team to come back up. So it's nice to see. That's what I say. I just think I'll happily eat my words about Luton because they're not a club which you look at and think, I don't know, they're just not a very easy club to hate. Think about how can you hate Luton? They're
Yeah,
doing what almost how Leicester won the league type of thing. Like you don't predict it, you don't expect anything from them, and when they do it, it's you can only clap, you can only be happy for them.
yeah, definitely. And I think well deserved win. I know Crystal Palace played well, but Kaminsky again, really showing how he's adapted to the Premiership. Had a really big, strong game, quite a few crucial saves.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, excite. It makes the league more exciting. That it's bringing more teams into the relegation fight. So, um, well done to Luton. Definitely, it's got can believe in. That's the main thing. I'm happy, and Edward's doing a remarkable job there. I think that's a wrap for this week's show. I think,
yeah,
um, Cam, thank you for being here and joining me, and hopefully,
likewise.
the energy, the passion, we'll be back next week with Hassan, who again, um, is missing a lot more than he likes to admit on the show. But
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? It's very odd not having him here, but yeah, everyone else, thanks for viewing. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and leave a comment. If there's anything we can do better, talk about more. If there's any clubs you feel like we're missing out on, or just generally, if there's anything that you agree or disagree with, just let us know. Other than that, see you next week.